Are you going through
now? Susan?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You are now the host.
Excuse me.
Boom. Over to you. And tell me when we start.
People are still joining, and I think we're going to give it, it's still only 2 minutes to 6 also.
Okay,
So we're going to give it at least 5 more minutes.
Fine.
And we're going to start with Havdalah, which unless you went to bed without saying Havdalah, Steve will do Havdalah.
Please.
Unless we told somebody else that they were doing it and forgot. Did somebody else think they were doing Havdalah?
No, I think it was Steve was mentioned.
Well, so Steve.
I was going to do it unless Moshe was going to do it or Riza was going to do it.
No, please.
Okay, good. So Steve will do it.
All right.
Well, good vote.
Good talk, everybody.
I don't know where that spice box is, so I'm going to get the other spice box.
Mm.
Oh, building so many.
I don't know who Darius Dale is. Okay.
It's too tall.
No, we're going to take it down as soon as I finish it.
So you should all feel free to say hi to each other and chat for a little while longer until we're ready to get started, at which time we'll make sure everybody is muted.
Cool beans. Hey, do you perchance have the new, I don't know if they rolled it out for your account, but the automatic captions?
I don't know.
I haven't seen anything about that. Maya.
Yeah,
Wow.
we had them rolled out on campus, so my account has them now, as long as I'm the host. But only the host can activate it because Zoom is weird.
Okay,
What does this do?
I'm the host.
So, Kit, I'm now the host of this, although it's Moshe's account. If I were to find it, where would I look?
It would be where those 3 dots are. If you click on the 3 dots, you should then have like a closed caption option, and then click on that, and you'll have a thing that says use token for third-party API. One will be an option for choose somebody to be the transcriptionist, and then a third, if it exists, will just say enable like auto captions or something.
I'm looking under audio settings, but I'm not seeing anything else. Accessibility. Wait a minute. Accessibility. Closed captioning. And they can be bigger.
Yeah,
so,
that just controls that, but it would be part of your host controls. Like it would be like in the.
But again, Steve didn't recommend.
So that's accessibility, but I don't even see.
It really would. So like in your main window, like if you see 3 dots, where
I don't see the 3 dots anywhere.
Oh, are you on your iPad?
No, I'm actually on my computer.
Because it should be at the bottom, like near the hang up button.
Yep. So the bottom has mute and stop video, each of which has a menu next to it, but it's not in either of those menus. Then there's security, participants, chat, share screen, record, and reactions, and then the end button.
No, you don't have it then. Although it's weird that you don't have any closed caption options if you're the host.
Yep, that's weird.
Although if it's part of somebody else's account, that might be why.
It's Moshe's account.
So maybe Moshe has it, Susan.
Well,
it's okay. I was just curious. I know we have it on campus now,
That's
but
where I did it from.
something to look at.
There are definitely still people joining, by the way, and I see that we have both Maya and Alexandra, but we don't have their pictures.
Susan, what button am I looking for?
Something about closed captioning.
Oh, there's Moshe.
Hi.
It may also be a part of a client update that has only been rolled out to corporate clients so far.
yeah, or clients or something. Yeah, anyway. Oh, good. It's dying. Hold on. We're going to have to switch things. We'll be right back.
Or find a power cord.
No.
We're trying to get Jill signed on. Just give us a second. For those who haven't heard, she has just spent her first Shabbat in her new apartment.
Mazel tov.
Okay.
She's at the 3 o'clock. She said she'll try to spouse. It'll be chilly, but I'll try to 3 o'clock. She said, sure.
Hello, Shana. Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, or I'm sending it.
Nice.
Figured Steven.
I didn't want to send it to you.
Mark is on too. I don't know why he's not in the picture.
And Cheryl, I have it.
Are you on?
I'm
Very
on.
good.
Come on.
Let's get on.
Thank
It's not a word.
It is not.
I have to get my glasses. I can't see.
It's having trouble seeing two of us, Steve. There you go.
Cheryl, I left my Havdalah candle in your car.
I think I carried it into your apartment, but we can look later tonight. Sorry.
Not a problem.
I'll look later when we're not online with everybody.
Okay, I'll follow on this in the Siddur then.
We haven't decided we're starting yet.
We haven't
Okay.
quite started. I think we're going to wait one more minute. We're up to 23 entities, which is, you know, about 30 people probably, maybe more.
Welcome to everybody who is not normally with us on a Motzei Shabbat. Glad you
We do
joined us.
Havdalah every week.
We do Havdalah and social hour every week. Even better.
True.
Drinks not included.
Well, they
Bring your
could
own.
be.
I have to get my glass of grape juice.
Jill,
Yeah?
so you can't be included in this Havdalah over Zoom. You can only listen and say amen.
I'll do that
But-
then.
I'll talk to you when we're not all in a group, and I'll get a candle over there and we'll help you with it tonight.
That'll work. Thank you.
And if I'm the one that left in the car, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Excuse me.
All right. Oh, wait, we're still
I'm
still a
trying to
little
get
bit of
Hadassah on. Hadassah's trying to get on. I'm going to work with her on that.
Hi, Mason.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. I'm trying to get Hadassah onto the thing. Hold on a second. Link.
You can reorder people.
Yes.
Makes me feel powerful.
Hello, how are you?
It's for you.
Okay. I think that it's time to start. Everybody good with that? I'm going to ask everybody to please mute themselves. And if you don't accomplish that, then I may have to mute everybody. But I'd rather have you all be in charge of that. Then I don't have to worry about the person who's supposed to be speaking and all of that stuff.
You forgot.
Okay.
Wait. Okay, we're good.
All right, we good? Eliyahu Anavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu,
Eliyahu Agiladi. Bimera b'yameinu yavoinu. Imashiach ben David. Imashiach ben David. Hine el Yeshuati. Eftach v'lo echad. Ki oziv zimrat ya Adonai. Vayhi li Yeshua. Ush'avtem mayim b'sason. Mimayne Yeshua. L'Adonai Yeshua. L'Amecha birchatecha sela. Adonai Tzivaot imanu. Miskav lanu Elohei Yaakov salah. Adonai Tzivaot ashrei Adam b'te'afa. Adonai Hoshia HaMelech Yaneinu V'yom Koreinu L'Yehudim Ha'eta Ora V'Simcha V'Sazon V'Kar Kein Yelanu Post Yeshuot Esa Uveshem Adonai Ekra. La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam Borei peri hagafen. Amen. Ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam Borei minei besamim. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam Borei meorei ha'esh. La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam Hamavdiu ben kodesh lecho, ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael ha'amim, ben yom hashvi, l'sheshet yemei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai, hamavdiu ben kodesh lecho. La 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 la. המבדיל בין קודש לחול, שרינו בחצרנו, בלילה.
הכוכבים בלילה.
שבוע טוב,
שבוע
שבוע
טוב.
טוב,
This is Rabbi Silver celebrating his book.
Is the book?
Are we on
Shavuot.
Okay. So now, the main attraction. Well, Havel is the main attraction. The Lord be the main attraction. However, we have a featured speaker. Shavuot Tov, Ruthie, sweetheart.
Shavuot Tov, Ruthie. Shavuot Tov, Susan.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, the rest of us are all going to stay on, and our featured speaker is our very own Rabbi Moshe Silver, who's going to talk to us about his new book, The Weight of Gold, and it has a subtitle too that is escaping me. He's going to tell you what that is. And so now, at this point, I think we should all mute ourselves again.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Shavuot Tov. I hope everybody hears me okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. I want to thank Susan for putting out the word. And also I want to thank David Weintraub at the Congregation Eitz Chaim for also circulating word about this event. I want to thank, of course, God for sustaining me, keeping me going, and bringing me to this moment and bringing us all here together. We just said Havdalah, which is the blessing that we recite on Havdalah, which means separation, separating between the holiness of the Sabbath and the rest of the week. And God creates the whole world with separation. We see that from the very beginning of the book of Genesis. There's the heavens and the earth, and there's the water and the dry land, and there's the light and the darkness, and there's woman and man. Everything is by division. And unfortunately, the world is a very divided place as well. And one of my main objectives in writing this book was to help to find ways to bridge those divisions. It's actually very auspicious for me. I want to thank you all for being here. It really means a lot to me. So many of my dear friends are here, people that have meant so much to me and to Risa and to our whole family over the years, and continue to mean a lot to us. Tonight is the night of, today, Shabbat was Yotet Kislev, the 19th day of the Jewish month of Kislev, which is a tremendously auspicious day in the Hasidic communities. It's known among the Chabad Hasidim as the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidim, because it's the day on which the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneor Zalman, was released from prison, and as a consequence, it's the day on which we begin anew the annual cycle of reading his major work, Tanya, which is one of the most incredible books ever written by a human being, not least of which one of the most incredible works of Jewish thought and of religious guidance. So if I can hope that I get a little bit of the energy resonating from the Alter Rebbe to me today, that would be an amazing thing. But the Rebbe wrote Tanya. I mean, he says in his introduction, he was a tremendously successful spiritual and social leader. He was an organizational genius on the level of Napoleon, and I'm not exaggerating. And it's the tradition in the Hasidic, it was the tradition in the Hasidic circles that individual students or followers of the Rebbe would come and sit with the Rebbe face to face in a private conference, and thus they would get their spiritual guidance and they would get their life guidance. And at a certain point, there were so many of them, the Rebbe said, you know what, I can't meet with everybody. Read my book, which was a very unusual thing anyway, because as you all know, the whole, even going back before the times of the Mishnah and the Talmud, the oral tradition in Judaism continues to be very strong to this day. despite the fact that there are hundreds and thousands of books coming out each year. And so it was a big departure when he published this book. In his introduction, he talks about, he said there at the time he was talking about two different categories of books. One kind of book that exhorts people to pious conduct on the grounds of the human intellect. It's like it's logical for you to behave the right way. And the other category he talks about are works that are based on the teachings that have come down to us over the centuries from our ancient sages. And he says, you know, that these books attract certain types of readers. Some readers are attracted to one kind of book, some to another kind of book, and some to no kind of book. And what I found is the book that we live by, which is the Torah, is a book that has often been presented in one of these two ways. It's been presented as, see, the Torah, it's this document that just it makes a lot of sense, and so we should follow it. Or, see, this is a document that we've lived by for thousands of years, and so we should follow it. Now, we have lived by the Torah for thousands of years, but despite what many religious teachers will tell you, the Torah that we're living by today, or the way in which we're living by it today, is not the way in which we lived by it 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 3,000 years ago. Human beings, human societies evolve. And one of the great tensions in society, in the Jewish world and in religious societies in general, is how to maintain the primacy of place of the religion and kind of keep people on board. And it's a lot easier to beat people into submission than it is to convince them through deep thought and long conversation that there's still value to what we are holding on to today, even though it doesn't look the same today as it did then. And so we're often told that what we're doing today is exactly what they did 3,000 years ago. This is why you see on our holidays, you will see on Sukkot the picture of the big sukkah, and you will see Abraham coming in wearing a shtreimel. You know, you'll see representations of the patriarchs and matriarchs dressed in contemporary clothing, dressed in contemporary Hasidic clothing, or what have you, as though, you know, this is the way we've always done things. My wife, Risa, and I made Aliyah, came to live in Israel in May of 2018. And about a month and a half later, I had a conversation with a business associate of mine who was going through a difficult time. And I urge you to buy the book, and you'll read all about this in the introduction. And he's a young man who is in many ways not, one would say, not like me. Among other things, he was a devout Christian. But we developed a closeness, and we spoke a lot. And I saw how hard he was working on turning his life around. And at one point I said to him, you know, I'd love to be able to come and sit down in Manhattan with you and have a cup of coffee, but kind of like I'm far away. And I asked if there was anything else that I could do that would be useful to him as he was going through this process. And he immediately said, you know, I read the Bible every day, but I really never had any insight into the Jewish reading of the Old Testament, the Jewish understanding of the scriptures. And, you know, maybe you could point out some biblical passages that could help me to, you know, get a new insight into personal growth. And I said, you know, dude, I'm a rabbi. Like, it's what I do. So as soon as we got off that phone call, I sat down and I wrote him a note on that week's Parashat, which was actually the Torah portion of the week was B'halotcha. So many of you on this call know what that means, and for those who don't, read the book. And I kept up and I wrote a note to him every week. And in the course of the year, we covered the entire Torah. I'm very pleased to say, thank God, that that my young friend is doing exceptionally well today, personally and professionally. And it's a tremendous blessing for me personally to have been some small part of that, and to continue to have both his friendship and to have him as part of my world and as a business associate, because God knows I need these people to continue to pay my rent. So, But one of the things that he said to me very early on, which really stuck and which was a tremendous bracha, blessing for me to hear, because it meant that I was hitting the right notes, was he said to me, I've been reading the Bible my entire life, but nobody ever showed me that the characters in the Bible are real human beings, and that they have their own problems, they have their own difficulties, they have their own challenges, and they have their own failures, and yet they have to overcome and they have to move forward. Also, many of you may know that I spent a lot of time until Corona hit, which made it very difficult, but I was going every week to a yeshiva here in Jerusalem, which is populated by young men who, for one reason or another, grew up mostly in ultra-Orthodox households, and for one reason or another, that program didn't work for them. And one of the things that I continually hear from them is, I'm told that I have to behave just like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've had a couple of conversations in particular around the character of Jacob, who is a liar and a thief and a coward, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people are telling me, how can this man be held up to me as like somebody that I'm supposed to emulate when he's dishonest? Look at the way he behaves. And many of these young men found the attitude that was dumped upon them, that was imposed upon them in the traditional Orthodox yeshivas, not just difficult and incomprehensible, but incredibly painful. Because if you've never gone through that kind of a strict religious upbringing, you don't understand how heavily it's dumped on you, how hard it's pounded into you over and over and over again, and how unforgiving that world can be if you ask even the simplest of questions. And so it's maybe more extreme in certain settings, but I think the world in general is like that. And I think we're facing a world that's like that today. I think we all need to find comfort and guidance and I'm hoping, God willing, that this book will help people to return to what should be a source of guidance and comfort in a meaningful way. The American philosopher Alan Bloom, in one of his essays about Shakespeare, says that, in olden days, meaning when he was a kid going to school, when people in the West had moral problems that they were trying to deal with, they looked to three sources for guidance. They looked to the classical or Greek and Roman authors, they looked to the Bible, and they looked to Shakespeare. And now he laments they look to none of those because they've all lost their meaning. So I like to think that for all the gifts that God continues to give me, I like to think that I'm giving something of a gift back to God by helping to make God's Torah a new book for people who have come to the end of their rope, if you will, reading it and saying, I can't buy this stuff anymore. So I would just say briefly, like something about the approach that I've taken. Then I'd like to share with you my note on this week's Parsha, on the portion that we read today. I open up on Parashat Bereshit, on the opening of the book of Genesis, and my focus in my note about Genesis is where God says, "Let's make Adam, Naaseh Adam. Let's make a human being." And there's a lot of discussion in the commentaries about, what does that mean? Who is God talking to? Because from the very beginning, it's just God speaking, saying, okay, light, okay, day, night, earth, sky, water, fish, trees, birds. And all of a sudden God says, let us make a human being. Naaseh Adam. And so the question immediately comes up, well, who's God talking to? Naaseh, let us make human being. And, Rashi, the great commentator, says, well, God turned around and talked to the whole heavenly host and said, what do you guys think? I'm going to make a human being. And Rashi quotes the, famous Midrash, which says, well, then the angel said, you don't want to make a human being. They're going to mess up. You're going to make a human being and they're going to sin and they're going to go against your will and they're going to do all kinds of bad things. And God says, yeah, you're right. But they're not going to do all those bad things all the time. And besides, I've already made my mind up anyway, so thanks for your input, but okay. And that's okay as it goes. But how is that supposed to get inside of me? So I would suggest that a useful way to read this, and I'm not saying, I learned a very important principle from a dear friend of ours, Rabbi Dan Shevitz, who, because his name is Rabbi Dan Shevitz, goes by the name the Radish. Those of you with yeshiva backgrounds will appreciate this. And we were having a conversation about biblical interpretations, and he said, you go all the way back to the days of the times of the Talmud, the rabbis of 1500, 2000, 2500 years ago. They never had a single idea of this is what it has to mean, but they were always on a quest of what can this mean? What can it mean? And I think if we take the approach to the Torah of what can it mean, it can speak to us every day, because our life is different every day. And if we go back to look at the text, at the same text, first of all, if we look at this incredibly powerful, incredibly complex, incredibly subtle and rich text, and we look at it and derive only one meaning from it over and over and over again every time we read it, we're not using the brains that God gave us. So that's a sin in and of itself. But so I would suggest that a useful way to look at this is to say, this is the text speaking to me. If you go back and you read these like 18th and 19th century British novels, quite often the novel, the page itself will say to you, dear reader, consider. Dear reader, gentle reader, let us look at. So I want to suggest that a very useful way to read this is for the text is saying to me, let's make Adam, you and me text, Torah text, you reader, let's make a human being. Let's make in our image. In other words, the text is saying if you don't have a personal connection to me, if you can't identify with me, if you can't identify with everything you're going to read, then I'm never going to have an impact on you. The text is inviting us, is drawing us in and say, let's do this together. This is a joint venture between God and the reader. The Torah is constantly something that we have to work at together. And God, I think, I don't know anything about God, and I'm pretty sure nobody else does, but despite what some people will say, but I think that to the extent that God is interacting with us through the pages of Torah, because our life is never the same from one moment to the next, I'm pretty confident that to the extent that there's that interaction is got to be able to keep up with and maybe even run ahead of the changes in our lives. I would say too, one thing that I've really learned again, and very, very powerfully in this period that we've been going through, this period of the corona, is how important it is for people to connect to each other. How important it is. I mean, we all understand, yes, it's important, human contact, but I just see, I mean, I'm very blessed. I'm here with Risa. We get along great, thank God. And I don't take that for granted. I never have, and I never will, but at times like these, it reinforces to me what a tremendous blessing it is to have someone that you love, that you actually get along with at the same time. And there are people who have nobody, or people who have people, but the people they have are not in the same building, not in the same city, not in the same country. And it's very, very painful to see people in isolation. One of the, as my own Rabbi, my teacher, Rabbi David Silber, says, the great sin and the great tragedy of life is despair. And what I see over and over again now is that there are people who, I've interacted here since we've come here with people who are in poverty, people in sickness, with Palestinian families that are struggling not to be thrown out of their homes, with these young men in the yeshiva who some of whom can never go back to their own families. And The great tragedy is not the tragedy of the moment. It's not that I'm hungry today, or that I'm sick today, or that I've been abandoned today. But the great tragedy is that I don't see that tomorrow is going to be any different. The great tragedy is when people are overcome by despair. And so I want to give us all a blessing that, and I believe my book also really does put forward this message that this is a Torah for everybody. It is the user's guide for the human soul. And it helps us and encourages us to use the pages of the Torah to look deep within ourselves. And the more we are honest and direct and courageous in digging deep and looking deep within ourselves, the more we're capable of seeing the other and of accepting the other. Because if we look really deeply within ourselves, we will see that the other is actually us. So with your permission, I will share with you the note on today's Torah portion, the Parashat Vayishlach, which is we're in the heart of the narrative of Jacob, who left his home because his brother was going to murder him. Not a good situation. Ran off to Haran, where he met his uncle Lavan, married his cousins, and is now on his way home. Returning to the land of Canaan at God's instruction, whereupon he learns that his brother Esau is coming to meet him, and 400 men with him. And despite God's promise of protection and God's explicit direction to return, Jacob is filled with dread. He takes tactical measures, hoping that Esau will not wipe him out and his entire family. He first divides everything into two camps. I'm trying to skip over a little bit of this in the interest of time and directness, okay? Note that last week's portion ended with Jacob giving the name two camps, Machanaim, to the place where he crossed in and out of Lavan's territory in Haran. But what is the significance now that Jacob divides his assets and his family? The last thing Jacob heard when he fled his home was that his brother Esau was bent on murdering him for the theft of the birthright and the blessing. 20 plus years have passed, but Jacob remembers this as though it was on the eve of the day that he fled. When they reunite, it seems that Esau has put the incident out of his mind. He's pleased. He seems genuinely pleased to see Jacob, and he addresses him in brotherly fashion, runs towards him, embraces him, falls on his neck, and kisses him. Esau may have forgotten his anger, but Jacob clearly still feels his own guilt. But the key incident of this portion occurs before the brothers meet. In the opening passage, Jacob is frightened. He sets up this elaborate sequence of expensive gifts to offer presents to Esau in an attempt to appease him. And then in the middle of night and under cover of darkness, he ferries his family and his possessions across the river. And then he comes back. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the coming of the dawn. And Jacob saw that he could not overcome him, and he thrust against his hip. So Jacob's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And then he said, "Let me go, because the dawn has broken." And he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." He said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but rather Israel, because you have struggled with God and with man, and you were equal to the task." And Jacob asked and said, "Please tell me your name." And he said, "Why? Why do you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So this he and him and he it's actually very confusing, right? This is exactly the way it's voiced in the original Hebrew. But it all works out. The speakers are actually in the right places. And who is this mysterious man with whom Jacob wrestles? Well, the rabbis say it was Esau's guardian angel. What does that mean? I think it suggests that Jacob has a twofold struggle. He's never confronted his guilt over the twin crimes that he committed when he lied to his father and deceived his brother. But second, and I think more important, it suggests that there is an aspect of Esau dwelling within Jacob. Jacob spends his whole life getting stuff. He accumulates physical wealth. He lives the life of a very hardworking, successful businessman. He's a family man, and you could say like a pillar of the community type, and that's exactly what Esau is actually. Esau is the hail fellow, well met, a success in the hunt, a success on the playing field, beloved of his family, attentive to his parents. The rabbis hold out Esau as the ultimate paradigm of the biblical commandment to honor one's parents. You can just see him, right? At the Rotary Club, maybe like an owner of a successful string of car dealerships, a successful retired athlete. So what is it about Esau that so terrifies Jacob? If not the awareness that in stealing the blessing from Esau, in stealing the position of the firstborn, that Jacob has perhaps in some measure become Esau. And after all these years of exile and privation and hard work, is this all that's left to Jacob? To be no more than and no better than a poor copy of his own brother? It's as though Jacob would become in this faint poetic echo, a faint Cain to Esau, powerful and assured Abel. I think Jacob's fear of having failed spectacularly in his spiritual quest is part of what the rabbis have perceived in this desperate struggle. Jacob spends his life getting stuff, but we haven't seen him doing anything to acquire wisdom. And true to his material success, Jacob has dispatched his family and his retainers and his worldly possessions to a place where he hopes they'll be safe, because what's the point of acquiring things only to lose them? He leads them across the river under cover of darkness, and then he crosses back, and without his family and without his entourage and without all his things around him, Jacob is perhaps for the first time truly alone. And being alone, he's forced to confront himself. And when Jacob comes face to face with his unexamined self, he's at a loss. Who are you? What, if anything, have you actually gained? What should I even call you? And how should I engage with you? And in the struggle, Jacob is injured and acquires a limp. And he's blessed with a blessing. His new name, Israel, is given not because he won, but because he was able. He hung in. Jacob's lesson is that it's not about winning. It's about being able to hobble off the field on his own, and about being able to return to the field again. What do we learn when, as King David says in Psalms, my sin is ever before me? Well, one reading is, no matter what I've done to make up for the bad things I've done, I still feel guilty about it. Never mind that I've repaid many times over the problems I've created, I still bear emotional wounds as though it were yesterday. At night, when I lie in the dark, my gut wrenches, my neck twitches, and my shoulders quiver in shame and grief. Or, I faced my shortcomings and my worst actions, difficult as it was. Things I've done in the past or failed to do, I've confronted. I've explored feelings that drove me to this behavior, my own inability to see those feelings for what they were. I've examined the impact that I've had on others. And even though I can't wipe out my painful emotions, I've confronted my inability to deal with my feelings, the lack of self-awareness that drove me to that behavior in the past. And just as I faced and overcome my troubles in the past, even though I still have feelings of guilt, of inadequacy, of depression, and even of despair, I can revisit my past emotional successes and draw strength and wisdom with which to face today's challenges. My emotions are part of who I am. They'll never go away. My past will never go away. It's all right here in front of me, waiting for me to dive in and learn what it's all about. If I fail to learn from my past, I shall never build a better future. In Hebrew, the name Israel is from the verb meaning to struggle. But it looks like a future tense form of the verb, suggesting that Jacob has been renamed not the one who did struggle, but the one who will struggle. So here's the bad news. It never gets easier. Life is an ongoing continuum of challenges, and when we win, up pops another one. Here's the other bad news. You will lose very often, and you will almost never really win. And when you do win, it will usually be temporary. Here's the good news. Success in life is not about winning. God needs each one of us to stay in the game. Those for whom life is all about winning, about making money, will fail because there will never be enough money, never enough winning for them to sit back and declare victory. Jacob learns the hardest lesson of all, that the world doesn't need winners. It needs people to keep coming back to the playing field and put out a full measure of effort. People who don't make material success their sole value, people who learn from their own pain and use it to make themselves stronger and to reach out to others. We've all created suffering through unthinking acts, suffering for others and for ourselves. The task now, armed with self-knowledge, is to relieve suffering wherever we encounter it in the world, for ourselves and for others. And so it is good that my sin remains by my side, because it's the best teacher. When my painful emotions rise up, I confront them. I will not let you go until you bless me, I say, until you teach me. When we learn to see the blessing within the most difficult parts of our own lives, we begin taking our first steps on the path to wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Moshe.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
A
you.
lot of people applauding mutedly. I don't know if this is the sort of thing where people are going to want to ask questions, but if you would like to ask a question, we surely have a few minutes and you can unmute yourself. And Cheryl reminds us that the book is called The Weight of Gold and it is available on Amazon. Some of us already have it. And we were really trying to figure out a really cool digital distanced way of Moshe signing all of our books. But the technology, I don't know. I mean, he could like write his name on pieces of paper and mail them to us. He could write his name on the screen and we could all print it out. But I don't know. It just kind of, only Mark Schulzen can figure this one out. So we're going to make him think of it.
Actually, I have an idea based on something else, but I'm not going to say it right now.
So Mark and Justin can talk to each other, and they're going to figure out a way of you signing all of our books.
My idea is very low tech.
But then I guess the other way is, you know, Mashiach and everybody going to Israel, and then you can sign all of our books. So if anybody has a question for Reb Moshe, you should feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
I'd just like to say thank you to Rabbi Silver. It's Jill.
Moshe, you're muted.
Thank you.
Yeah, Moshe, you're on mute right now, Moshe. So if you're speaking to all of us, then we don't hear you. He's not.
He's quiet.
Rabbi.
Chazak Be'ematz, Rabbi, back to you. Thank you.
I just that one. It was very meaningful. Thank you.
I read from the beginning through this week's Parsha after I obtained it, and it's really worthwhile, and read it.
And I also would like to say that it's just really beautiful to see everybody here. There are 36 entity participants, which suggests to me statistically that there are about 50 people altogether, which is a really tremendous group. And it's just so nice to see all of your faces and to be together in this virtual way.
And if you're not familiar with the chat and how it works, Tanya just posted the link for the book. Ask somebody, it's there. Thank you, Tanya.
Yashikara.
Feedback.
This is what happens when you get two people on different machines. Anyway, it's a lovely read, and that I will finish Parsha by Parsha, and look forward to Shemot.
I'd like to ask everybody a favor, since most of you are here are people that I feel comfortable asking favors. Of course, I want everybody to buy the book, but when you do buy the book, if you're so motivated, it would be tremendously helpful to me if you go back on Amazon and give it a review. The more stars, the better, obviously. But, you know, it's a struggle out there. And to me, what's really important is getting this message out. There are people here in Jerusalem that I've been interacting with, particularly, interestingly enough, outside of the yeshiva, for example, particularly people in the Christian community who are finding, who who are finding this book very, they're very inspired by it. So I'm just trying to get the word out as much as possible. You should know that I am not taking any profits from the sales of the book. Not like it's, Hollywood hasn't called yet, so I don't expect to yet be worried about foregoing a couple of $1 million in revenues. But this is part of it's a promise that I made to myself when I started learning for smicha, that I would not use Torah as a means of making money. And so any profits that I get from this book will go to any of a number of charitable causes that Risa and I support. So that should make you feel better about helping me to market it. Anyway.
Can I? Hi guys. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. A quick question. Because I'm not enough familiar with the market process in Israel. If somebody is in Israel, do they still purchase it through Amazon, or is there a different means to purchase within Israel?
A good question. Thank you. God willing, in about a week or two, the printed books will be delivered here in Jerusalem, at which point I'm hoping to have, it'll be in a couple of the local bookstores here. And, obviously available for direct purchase from the author.
But please let us know where they will become, when they become available, please let us know where.
Sure, no, for sure. And, and they'll be in a big box in our living room. So, so we need to sell them.
Into Hebrew?
Excuse me?
Are you considering translating the book into Hebrew?
Or Italian?
Or French?
I'll let...
Let's stick with Hebrew.
Greek?
Work on the Klingon if you want, but let's move along.
I think Darius wanted to say something.
Darius wanted to say something, yes.
Yes, I did. And thank you guys for having me. I am just a fly on the wall. I really, really, really appreciate being able to enjoy Shabbat with you guys. I understand the significance of tonight. It's very meaningful to me. I am the gentleman Moshe spoke of earlier. I was going through a very, very difficult time in my life. And I've had a very difficult life. I'm very, very much like the young men that Moshe works with now in Israel. People who are lost, who don't have direction, who don't have good parents, who don't have resources and the understanding. But I was always, fortunately enough, I was always close to the Lord. And I knew that when I was going through this really tough time in my life that I needed to get back to the Lord. And I'm so grateful for his gratitude, and I'm so grateful for the gratitude of your religion. I don't think most religions will allow someone, an outsider, if you will, to come in and observe and be gracious to the Lord and his lessons and his meaning, and really to derive the strength and the hope and the courage to grow that I derived from this experience. This took 2 years. It wasn't just the 1 year that he wrote these passages to me. It was 2 full years of him dedicating his time, his life, his efforts, his heart to helping me grow as an individual. And I think it speaks volumes to not just Moshe as a wonderful human being, as one of the best people I've ever met, but I think it speaks volumes to what your community is, what each of you guys contribute to it, and how much you guys care about the people who are impacted by you guys in your community. And I thank you, and I appreciate you, and I just want to say that, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
for being.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you too, brother. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
I'd like to make special mention of hi to Alex and Maya, who are here somewhere without their cameras on. Hi, guys.
They may have cameras on because you can only see 20 people at a time.
Hello. Hello. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, cool. I'm multitasking, so I turned my camera off. But hello, it's so nice to see everybody. and here are the books. Oh wait, can you hear me now? Oh no.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. Okay. I'm multitasking, so I turned my camera and my speaker off. But it's so nice to see everybody and hear everybody. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Cool. You talking.
Glad you guys.
Great to see you too.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
There's your face. Good.
Ah.
Rabbi, do you by chance know if there is a version of your book that is not a specific Amazon file, but is like an EPUB file or something I could convert to Braille?
I would ask you to send me an email, please. And I will contact the publisher and we'll get you a file of some kind. I'm not sure exactly, the only link that I have available is the one that goes directly to order on Amazon. So you can, which is either the printed book or the ebook. But that's I'm sure that the publisher will be able to either create or that there will be some other format that he already has that just he didn't put out. Is that okay? Can you send me a direct email and I'll follow up with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moshe, can you explain what the title means or why you chose that title?
Good. Thank you.
Question.
So there was very early in the process, my dear friend, my brother Darius, I saw how he, I was talking to him and he took to it, like we clicked. And at a certain point, as I said, he said to me, it would be really helpful if you could give me some insight into the way you read the Bible.
I'm confused because I thought
And so I took that as a very serious spiritual obligation, not just like, oh, now I get somebody who's going to read my stuff, but rather now I have an opportunity, the blessing, and also the obligation to take great care because another human being has asked me to help with the care of his soul. And it's a big burden, but it's a precious burden. And immediately I thought of the words of a song from the Grateful Dead. I don't know, but I was told it's hard to run with the weight of gold. On the other hand, I've heard it said, it's just as hard when the weight is lead. So I started running with the weight of gold, carrying that weight. And it's been a tremendous life-changing experience for me. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to every time I speak with Darius to see how well he's doing and to hear what he said here tonight. Thank you over and over and over again, brother. It's a blessing that God sent you into my life.
Likewise, I feel exactly the same way, man. I didn't grow up with a proper home and a proper father, and you are the closest thing to that I've ever had in my lifetime. And so I just want to thank you for your heart and your wisdom and your courage to take this huge undertaking on. And I appreciate you for that. Thank you. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless you, brother.
I'm going to just say that I think we should draw this to a close. So if people have final words that they want to say, and just everybody can unmute and go, bye, nice to see you. There can be a little bit of cacophony. That's fine.
So before we get into the cacophony, I just want to put a plug in for our weekly Havdalah session for anyone who has not checked it out until tonight. It's awesome. And if you want to find out about the next one, stay tuned and check in with the Tefillat Kol Peh Facebook group. Susan, Or
email
Hornstein,
Susan Hornstein at yahoo.com.
there you go.
Email in the chat, Susan.
And we do not yet have a volunteer for next week. So before we go to Cacophony, do we have a volunteer for next week?
Moshe Shabbos Hanukkah is a big opportunity.
Yeah, baby.
Or is there a lot of other stuff going on next week, like a shul thing in Avasavka?
I'll do it.
Yeah?
Mark will do it.
Mark Schulten will do it. It shall be announced. It shall be done.
And so it shall be.
So let it written, so let it be written, so let it be done.
Make it so.
I will make sure he remembers.
Thank you, Shay.
I'll send you an email, Mark.
Thanks.
Okay.
Make it so, number one.
Shavua Tov, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add before. Just wanted to add before we leave. I'm sorry, everyone. I know we're about to leave, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, Abba, for writing this awesome book, and Darius for being a part of it. It's been so amazing to hear you guys talk, and just Susan and everyone for being here. I mean, it's not my thing, but it's just been awesome to see all of this and see everyone. And just thank you so much. I'm sorry that I'm also off camera, but seeing all of your faces has been great. So thank you.
You too can be part of this, Maya. It's allowed.
I don't know if you saw, but Davita's on the call too. So
hi, Davita.
Hi, Davita.
Yeah, you want to put them in a great breakout room or something?
We'll put all the people under the age of 30 into a breakout room.
I'm afraid if we put them into a breakout room, they'll trash it.
How does that work on Zoom?
Good news, everyone.
No,
I've
wait a minute.
listened to Abdullah in my new place.
Yay.
Yay. My new place in South 6th.
And Cheryl, what did you want to say?
Some of the under 30s are my friends too. I don't want them in a breakout room. There's a limit to how old I want to be.
You want to be 16 again?
We were under 31 too, you know.
Shavua Tov, everyone. This was great. And I wanted to tell Steve that it looked like we should start calling you Harry Potter because it looked like you were wearing an invisibility cloak.
Yeah, well, I was coming to you directly from Camden Yards in Baltimore because it was nicer looking than my place.
Yeah. You know what they say about places? If you build them, they will come.
Indeed. Moshe, check your WhatsApp. Good night, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting.
Okay.
Good night, Kavah.
Good night. Thank you.
Lila Tov.
Thank
you. And Rabbi Moshe, thank you for getting up so late, early, whatever, to be with us and share your presence.
Oh, is that the time?
Yes.
Yes.
I hope you understand now.
Great to see you all. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.